Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the session 5 of the Governance Capacity Development Session Series on strengthening public governance and accelerating innovation to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is co-organized by the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs through the UN Project Office on Governance of the Division for Public Institutions and Digital Government and the Global Research and Development Business Center of Seoul National University. We are already on the middle way out of the 10 sessions. We hope you're finding our governance capacity development session series interesting and helpful so far. My name is Mi-kyung Park, Governance and Public Administration Officer at UNPOG, DPIDGU, and DESA, and I'm pleased to be the moderator for today's session. The theme of today's session is strengthening data governance for effective use of open data and big data analytics in the context of COVID-19. During the last 2 sessions, we have focused on digital transformation, and as data is the primary key in this process, data governance is a prerequisite to achieve successful digital transformation. And data governance has become even more important in the current COVID-19 pandemic situation, as more countries are reliant on data, especially on open data and big data analytics for effective, agile, and inclusive COVID-19 response and recovery. And at a time when there are also public concerns rising about data privacy, data security, and trust in leveraging digital technologies for addressing COVID-19, instituting data governance is important to address these concerns and to deliver the potential of public value of data. And to discuss this very important issue, we have 3 distinguished speakers today. First, the thematic presentation will be jointly delivered by my colleagues, Mr. Pogin Shim and Mr. Keping Yao from UNPOG. And second, we'll have a country case presentation by Mr. Seong-ju Son, Director of the Digital Government Cooperation Division of the Ministry of the Interior and Safety of the Republic of Korea, to introduce Korea's data governance framework and how Korea has been leveraging data for effective COVID-19 response. And after the presentations, we'll have a Q&A discussion. And as usual, we'd like to invite you to share your questions to the speakers in the Q&A box. And also, please kindly note that the session guidance note is available on the UNPOG website, and all presentation materials and video recording of this session will become available at UNPOG website after the session as well. Okay, before we begin the presentations, I would like to quickly run an interactive exercise to invite all participants to share your ideas on data governance. And for that, I would like to share my screen. I hope you can see my screen. Yes, I would like to invite the participants to use your computer or use your mobile phone to go to www.menti.com and use the code that is provided here, 366691454 to provide your input. And if you go to menti.com, you can see this page. You can enter the code here. And the first question, we would like to hear your opinions, your thoughts, your ideas on what data governance is to you. So the first question is, what does data governance mean to you? So I know it could be a question that may require many words, but please try to be as concise as possible, maybe 2 or 3 words, to see what kind of thoughts, ideas you may have on data governance, and other participants are thinking about this main theme that we're addressing in today's session. So once again, I would like to invite everyone to go to menti.com and use your equipment to share your opinions. Yes, we are receiving some responses. Thank you very much for your very active participation. I see protection of data, privacy, public trust, transparency, basis for decision-making, information management, security of data, interoperability and usability, knowledge. I also see another one with transparency and security. Transparency, I think it's mentioned many times. Accessibility, digital divide. Yes. It means to protect data of public and gain trust from the public. Okay, thank you. Security of data privacy, efficiency, big data analysis and management, smart and quick service, the capability of meeting citizens' needs based on accurate and reliable data. Thank you. Data sharing under the protection policy. Yes, I think we can give participants a few more seconds to share your ideas. Knowledge management also appears once again, knowledge, yes. Okay, thank you very much for your contribution. I think there are quite some common elements as well as some different thoughts, ideas shared about data governance. Okay, thank you. And we'll have one more question. Yes. So among the choices here, what do you think is or are the main challenges to you, to your organization or your country in instituting data governance? I think you can see the choices. Here you can choose more than one, but you can choose those that you think are the main challenges. There are the choices are leadership, strategy and policy, law and regulation, institutional arrangement, interagency coordination, multi-stakeholder collaboration and partnership, technologies, data protection and privacy, data literacy and skills. Yes, please, I think the voting has just opened, so please share your ideas. Yes, we are receiving some responses. Thank you for your inputs. Yes. And there's also one selection that says others. So if you think there are critical challenges that are not indicated here, please select others, but kindly share your thoughts in the chat box to see what are other dimensions or elements of data governance is deemed to be a main challenge that is not indicated here. Yes. Okay. So yes, I see one others response. So please kindly share your ideas. Okay, maybe a few more seconds before we close the vote. Okay, I see the highest factors or elements are leadership, strategy, and policy equal. Also technologies, also 21 votes. Data protection and privacy, data literacy and skills. Yeah, but also other factors such as interagency coordination, multi-stakeholder engagement, law and regulation are also mentioned. Important. Okay. Thank you very much for your contribution. I think it's very good opportunity to hear what are the main ideas, understanding of data governance of our distinguished participants, as well as the main challenges. And indeed, the diverse elements and dimensions of data governance that we just quickly shared ideas on will be addressed in today's session. And during the presentations, please feel free to share in the chat box your thoughts, your further thoughts, not only just the choices, but also your experiences or maybe your suggestions on these questions or issues for experience sharing, as well as peer-to-peer learning among the participants. Okay, with this very active ideas shared, thank you once again. I would like to now invite UNPOG speakers to begin the first presentation. It is my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Pogin Shim, Head of UN Project Office and Governance, DPID's UN DESA, and Mr. Kevin Yao, Senior Governance and Public Administration Expert of UNPOG. Mr. Yao, you'll start the presentation, so the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Park, for the short overview and also conducting the Mentimeter exercise, which has actually pinpointed the main elements of data governance. So now we start with the first presentation to be jointly delivered by Mr. Shim and myself. Next, please. So this is the table of contents. I will introduce the first part until bullet point 5. And also my part is developed on the basis of one recent policy brief of UN DESA, which was prepared by UNPOG on the same title. Also, I will not address all aspects of data governance. For example, I will not particularly address data leadership and data quality. Next, please. So in response to COVID-19 crisis, governments are desperate for timely, quality, open, and disaggregated data for situation analysis and data-driven decision-making. All this data, they're not only essential for designing short-term responses, but also important for accelerated actions to put countries back on track to achieve the SDGs. Next, please. Here, it's a recent survey that conducted by UN Statistics Division of UN DESA. So it's about a focus of COVID-19 data collection efforts by national state offices globally. So you can see that 82% of the national state offices, they're collecting the social economic impact on households, and 76% of the national state offices, they collect data on the social economic impacts on businesses. And also they also collect other information, for example, like access to health infrastructure and services, identification of population at risk, and also the COVID-19 infections, fatalities, and recovery. Next, please. Governments not are highly dependent on all data for decision-making and actions to address COVID-19, not only on the traditional data, for example, the official statistics, administrative data, for example, administrative data, including the business register, tax records, and etc. Government also are now relying more on non-traditional data, such as open data and big data. Next, please. So when we talk about open data means that the content is open and anyone is free to use or reuse or distribute it. Yeah. So there should be legally open and also technical open. So technical open is also important. There should be machine readable and non-proprietary. It means that you can use those kind of commonly free available software to use the data, access the data, and process the data. And due to the type, format, and quality of the data, they vary significantly. So it is a big challenge to certify the data and put them in effective use with the value added. So many governments, they have open data portals in different categories. Yeah. Next, please. And also when we talk about big data, normally those kind of data associated with such characteristics like a high velocity, high volume, and high variety. And also those kind of data that are generated from these kind of devices, like GPS devices, ATM machines, scanning devices, sensors, security cameras, mobile phones, or social media. Now, when we talk about big data analytics, normally it means that we find some advanced analytic techniques or tools to uncover the hidden patterns, correlationships, and other insights. Yeah. So all this kind of big data, they may be structured or semi-structured or unstructured data, like a video file or audio file. Next, please. So why government now become more reliant on open data, big data analytics in a time of COVID-19? So first of all, it's about the government need to conduct real-time situation analysis, conduct tracing, and also make early and timely diagnosis for effective containment. And all such data are very important to facilitate the coordination and collaboration between the national and the local governments. And also they're important to secure the public trust through the better transparency and improve the communications. And also this data is so important to counter the misinformation. And also what's more important is that during the COVID-19, the vulnerable groups are normally the most hit. So we need to identify and address their special vulnerabilities and their needs by gathering the disaggregated data. And also all this data can support effective management also about the medical equipment supplies and demands. Next, please. So last year, our division also conducted a kind of questionnaire and solicit the innovative practices in member states about some general trends in digital responses against the COVID-19. They include like information sharing, how the government use different ways to provide accurate time information and also monitoring the spread of COVID-19. And also many countries that open the designated COVID-19 portal. And also many countries, they open new channels for more effective citizen engagement. And also they open many kind of hackathons to invite the private sector and the people to come up with innovative solutions. And also there are e-health solutions, for example, about a self-assessment of health status, the virtual doctor, and the supply of medical goods, and promote remote patient monitoring. Next, please. And also government also initiated many COVID-19 initiatives to strengthen private sector companies, particularly provide support to the micro, small, and medium enterprises. And also government also developed many kind of contact tracing apps to localize and contain the spread of COVID-19. And also government also use robots, drones, all this kind of devices to for the social distance and virus tracking. Next, please. Also here, I also list 3 cases that for applying the data for the COVID-19 responses. The first case I cited here, it's there's one Facebook group in Nepal. They call the Nepal Data Literacy Community that discuss and also the opportunity how to collaborate and use the data that could help inform the people. The second case is UNICEF. They provide an app on U-Report to help promote the information and the knowledge sharing and also track the situation of the spread of the COVID-19. Next, please. Also, this one is kind of a COVID-19 health dashboard with the collaboration with other stakeholders. They generated the health dashboard and to monitor the relationship of a population over 70 years old people to the population of the overall to see the population density so that the government can provide some timely help assistance to these elderly people. Next, please. So here it's about a variety of approaches to data as a key resource of government. Yeah, we often hold about this data-informed decisions, data-driven decision makings, where the government use analytics and algorithms in decision making. And also we also talk about that data-centric decision making. Next, please. So now I will talk about some major public concerns in leverage open data and big analytics. Of course, the primary concern is about the data privacy and security. This has become more complex due to the increase in data partnerships between government institutions and private sector, such as the telecommunications companies and the credit card companies for purpose of contact tracing and social distancing. Second is about public trust in data collection and use and the dissemination by the government or other stakeholders, such as the private sector. Yeah. And also public is also worried about unauthorized access and the misuse of personal data. And also in many cases, public may not duly informed the citizens about the legal or technical protocols governing such data partnership between government institutions and the private sector. Next, please. Also, recently, IBM Policy Lab, in collaboration with one consultancy company called Morning Consult, they conducted a poll on the tech, privacy, and the pandemic. They're surveying adults in the United States and the European Union on ways COVID-19 has changed their outlook on technology and what role technology companies can and should play in responding to the pandemic. Yeah. So you can see that almost half, 49% of respondents across the US and the EU, they are more concerned about the privacy as a result of contact tracing during COVID-19 and pandemic. Next, please. And also on the same survey, you can see that how much people they support or oppose the following policy initiatives. You can see that because of the concerns that just reflected in the last slide, so more than 2/3 of Americans and Europeans, they strongly support policy actions to safeguard privacy of consumer data. And also 46% of people, yeah, they strongly support implementing responsible and ethical data handling. And 43%, they strongly support ensuring that the technology works regardless of location. It means that the technology should work without releasing or attached the information about location. Next, please. So now I move to the bullet 3. So what is data governance? So data governance actually is a systemic and a multidimensional approach to setting policies and regulations, establishing leadership of institutional coordination and national strategy, and also nurturing and enabling data ecosystem, and also streamline data management. Actually, similar to main elements of other governance, data governance is supported by dynamic relationships between policies, institutions, people, processes, and enabling technologies. Next, please. And here is illustrating a framework about data governance. So from here, you can see that the major pillars are policies and regulations, national data strategy and leadership, data ecosystem, and data technologies. So all these major elements, they include like data protection, privacy and ethics, open government data, data sharing, linked data and interoperability, data rules and institutions, and data literacy and capacity development, people engagement, partnerships, analysis, and data visualization. Next, please. So why the data governance needed? Yeah, as already elaborated in previous slides, they help tackle the complexity of multiple and interdisciplinary data sources. They can also help address the significant challenges of coordination in terms of gathering, collection, partnership, and data analytics. They can also facilitate the data dissemination across government institutions and between the government and citizens and other stakeholders. They also help to create an enabling environment for sharing data, linked data, and data interoperability. Next, please. Establishing a framework for effective data governance is very challenging due to a multitude of reasons, particularly in harnessing open data and big data analytics for responding to COVID-19. Governments are faced with some long-standing challenges in data governance. So these challenges include, for example, the lack of legislative and policy frameworks and the technical means to protect the personal privacy, lack of a sufficient policy, institutional, technical coordination, data partnerships, and also insufficient measures to safeguard the data security and ICT infrastructures. Next, please. Also, some other challenges include inadequate and insufficient data disaggregation, which leaves the vulnerable groups unaccounted for or left out from government rescue measures or emergency assistance. They also challenge about the lack of effective risk communication strategy, which is very essential for building public trust in times of urgencies. And also maybe the challenge also include lack of a data ecosystem, so which causes data fragmentation and data silos. Next, please. So in times of public health emergencies, these problems really constitute severe barriers to generate public value of open data and big data analytics. So they also set back innovative solutions for effectively addressing the emerging situations. So with that, I would like to cite some major policy issues on institutional data governance to address the COVID-19. So first one is about the primary policy issue. It's about how to effectively protect the personal data through laws and regulations and policy frameworks. So all this kind of rejects the policy concerns, public concerns about their data privacy, including legitimacy of collecting and using personal data, lack of public awareness, and lack of clarity as to when and how the personal data will be used. And also they are public also may be worried about proliferation of personal data collected. And also in many cases, the government may not seek the consent from individuals for public use. So citizens may lack information on the protocol on governing the data partnership between the government institution and the private sector. Next, please. Of course, the public concerns may also include the data ownership of the partnership is not clear. And also there could be a possible stigma against certain individuals and communities or specific group of people if the data related to these individual specific groups become publicized without consent. And also there could be conflict between the private data ownership, such as those kind of religious groups, and also public data governance for the interest of the whole society. This is what happened in Korea in the very beginning of the eruption of the virus. Next, please. So it is critical to enact Information Protection Acts or revise the existing laws and regulations. Yeah. For example, in Spain, there's a kind of GDPR-related certificate clarification report on the usage of digital technologies. This report clarifies that there's no reason to suspend fundamental rights with regard to data protection during the pandemic. Yeah. My colleague will also further elaborate on this point. Next, please. And our second policy issue is how to mobilize the whole society efforts and increasing the engagement of stakeholders through policy, institutional, and technical cooperation. So many countries, they have a centralized data platform for coordinating data and partnerships. So in this case, they need to set up this platform with engagement of multi-stakeholders, yeah, to collect the different data sources. And also the private sector, IT sector, can also provide a technical and financial resources for building data sharing platforms and sharing information for contact tracing. Next, please. Here is a case about Japan. The government set up a kind of public-private joint task force on tech team respond to COVID-19 to promote utilization of data for limiting the spread of COVID-19. Another case is in Saudi Arabia. The university they also coming together to understand this virus to help protect the communities. Yeah. They use the supercomputer to compare an analysis of the virus. Next, please. And also the third main policy issue is the kind of data security and resilience of ICT infrastructure. So during the public health emergencies, many activity services such as healthcare, education, they're all converted online. That must be. So the society, more dependent on the ICT and digital government systems. So the But during the COVID-19, there's the integrated digital government system that could become more vulnerable to cyber attacks. And also integration may cause that one system has a problem, and they may cascade into other systems. They become more vulnerable due to the high demands, and also maybe more attacks on the system. And also it is even more critical to strengthen data security, and resilience, So the government should be more concerned about this issue. Next, please. And also about e-resilience, so also very important in COVID-19. E-resilience normally have two dimensions. One is that how to ensure the stability of the system, how to meeting the temporary surge in demands. Secondly is that how to restore the system in case of a problem. And also when they have a system failure. Next, please. The fourth issue is about inclusion of vulnerable groups in data collection and data dissemination, data disaggregation. So vulnerable groups normally, they are underrepresented or excluded in the process of data collection. So, but in the meantime, they are also often the most severely affected by the impact of COVID-19. So if people are not accounted for, they will not be eligible for government benefits. This is the case of, for example, homeless people. All those people working in the informal economy in many countries, they are not counted in the system. Next, please. So one of the primary reasons of this type of exclusion of vulnerable groups is a weak government capacity in the civil restoration and wider statistics. So it is very important that government should ensure that these vulnerable groups are included from onset of the data collection process. And of course, when we disseminate, the government disseminated data and data classification, there also should be included. Next, please. So data disaggregation is key during pandemic. So also data disaggregation should be further refined to include more than one aspect because many vulnerable groups, they have a more dimension of vulnerabilities. Next, please. So governments, while we make efforts to improve the data disaggregation for the inclusion of vulnerable groups, it is equally important to protect the privacy of vulnerable groups and avoid exposing them to potential discrimination and those threats and harms. Next, please. The next is about the effective risk communication strategy and public trust. So during the COVID-19, it's really very urgent, very essential to have effective risk communication strategy. It can be instrumental to fight rumors and misinformation and not to avoid unfair treatment or discrimination. And also this kind of effective and timely data release by government is a key for risk communication and also building public trust in government. Next, please. And also for this kind of effective risk communication strategy, governments should create centralized data platforms and share up-to-date data and information through various channels. Next, please. And also through the timely and thorough and timely sharing of government data contributes to understand citizens about the COVID-19. And also they can improve the performance and priorities of the government in combating the virus. The open and transparent data also help strengthen accountability during times of emergency. Because during the COVID-19, the government procurement, the process may be expedited. They can cause some corruption. Next, please. So last is about how to creating a kind of enabling data system for effective solution to pandemic. So the government need to collect the data from different sources. So they need the support from other stakeholders. Next, please. So data system is actually one of the key pillars of data governance. They're reflecting the relationships between data processes and the public engagement. Next, please. of course, some common challenges in creating an enabling data system, including lack of leadership or coordination mechanism, institutional barriers or lack of trust, poor data quality, lack of data interoperability, and lack of organizational policies, which are restricting data sharing. So to address the challenge, actually, in the National Student Office should play a great role in coordination for this timely and a more open flow of information. Next, please. So actually here I want to show you two results from the recent survey about those kind of proportion of national student offices that have coordinated government work with other agencies during the pandemic. You can see that more than 48% of these national student offices, they're coordinated with other works, other other government agencies on data quality, and also followed by the data sharing agreements, protection, confidentiality, and the privacy standards. Next, please. And also this one is also about the share of national student offices that have established new partnerships. You see that have partnership access new data sources, to access and use technology, to develop and implement new methods in the three group of countries. Yeah. Thank you. Now I pass the floor to Mr. Shim.
Thank you, Keping. My name is Bo-Gyun Shim, head of UNPOC, part of DPIDG, UN DESA. If you take a look at this slide, you will find a very interesting phenomenon. While there was a steady increase in the world population over the years, the number of network devices, the amount of data produced, and the data market size have grown rapidly since 2013. However, there is still a big gap in data governance. For example, as of 2018, only 15% of data are classified and being used, whereas the remaining 75% is not being used. The gap also results from the absence of a CDO, Chief Data Officer, to take responsibility and manage data. Only 10% of governments have a CDO set up. So it is very important for us to observe what different regions and countries are struggling to institute data governance. Now I would like to share some of the recent trends in data governance. First is about the development trends in open government data. You can see the UN e-government survey 2020, the number of countries that have instituted open government data portals has continuously increased over the past years. It jumped from 46 countries in 2014 to 153 countries in 2020. And on the right, you can see that there have also been increases in associated features of OGD product. Here we can see the sector OGD provision in different regions of the world. It is shown that Europe leads in the provision of OGD in all sectors, while Africa lags behind. Also, the graph on the right side shows the percentage of countries by region and that allow individuals and businesses to access own data, own government records. Another important trend is an increasing emphasis on cybersecurity. Here we can see that a growing number of countries have a cybersecurity legislation available online, while the figure shows that 64% of member states have a cybersecurity legislation. However, there are still 70 countries with no cybersecurity legislation or with no relevant information accessible online. With the rapid uptake of e-services and the increased use of government data in the public sector, a number of challenging privacy and ethics issues have emerged, and many governments have articulated and publicized privacy policies. The graph shows that the number of countries with privacy statements available on their e-government portals has increased. OECD promotes open government data through the OECD Our Data Index, it assesses government's efforts to implement open data in the three critical areas. One is openness, two is usefulness, three is reusability of government data. You can see the sub-pillars under the three main pillars. Another important trend in data governance, as many of you would know, is the EU's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, which went into effect in 2018. The GDPR has set the bar, becoming a de facto standard for data security and privacy across Europe, as well as other geographies. Article 5 of the GDPR mentions 7 data protection principles. And here are 19 checkpoints under 4 categories for data controllers. To look at several under lawful basis and transparency, it is necessary to provide clear information about your data processing and the legal justification. In your privacy policy for data security, the first point emphasizes the data protection by design and by default. The GDPR requires organizations to encrypt, pseudonymize, or anonymize personal data. The next is accountability and governance dimension. And the last category of privacy rights addresses the 8 privacy rights, which are the right to be informed, access, rectification, erasure, restricted processing, data portability, object rights in relation to automated decision-making and profiling. The GDPR also says about what constitutes consent from a data subject to process their information. It must be freely given, specific, informed, and unambiguous. As for the GDPR, in the context of COVID-19, EDPB issued a statement saying that data protection rules such as GDPR do not hinder measures taken in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. And the EU recently has the European Strategy for Data 2020, which aiming at creating a single market for data that will ensure Europe's global competitiveness and data sovereignty. It says common European data spaces will ensure that more data becomes available for use in the economy and society, while keeping companies, individuals who generate data in control. There are 8 problems to be addressed, one of which is data governance. There are 4 major countries. One is governance framework, investment in data, and the strengthening Europeans' capabilities and infrastructures, empowering individuals, investing in skills, common European data spaces. And the first set of measures announced in the 2020 European Strategy for Data, there was a proposal for a regulation on European Data Governance or Data Governance Act. This proposal aims to foster the availability of data for use by increasing trust in data intermediaries and by strengthening data sharing mechanisms across the EU. Also, it is geared towards transparency and fair competition. Next is about chief data officers. With the increasing and expanding use of data, the role of chief data officers, who is an executive leader responsible for the utilization and governance of data across the organization, is becoming more and more important. For instance, their role is to achieve the goal of turning data into a true asset for the business side of the government or company. They establish government-wide best practices for the management, use, protection, dissemination, and the generation of data. They also promote and encourage data sharing agreements between agencies. Also, there is data ombudsman. For example, in Finland, there is the Office of the Data Protection Ombudsman, which is a national supervisory authority that supervises the compliance of the data protection legislation. They are responsible for making sure the data is useful, appropriate, diverse, and ethical. Now I'd like to introduce some specific country cases. The first country case is the United Kingdom. In 2020, led by the Department for DCMS, the UK government launched the National Data Strategy to drive the UK in building a world-leading data economy while ensuring public trust in data use. And there are 5 pillars of effective data use in strategy, which are data foundations, skills, availability, and the responsibility. You can see the details of each pillar in each box. One aspect to highlight in the process of setting this national data strategy is that government engaged and underwent consultations with other stakeholders, including representatives from businesses, public bodies, educational organizations, as well as individuals. One example of harnessing data for COVID-19 response in UK is the COVID-19 data store of the National Health Services. This data store brings together and protects all of the accurate real-time information necessary to inform decisions in response to the pandemic and to monitor the spread of the virus and implement appropriate measures. The personal data held is pseudonymized and does not identify individual patients. Another aspect I'd like to highlight is the shielded patient list, which is the compiled list of people who are the most vulnerable to COVID-19. Such data enables government and other partner organizations to provide help to those who need additional support. The second country is South Africa. There is the Protection of Personal Information Act of 2013, which has been gradually put into force. And during COVID-19, the information regulator issued the guidance note. It permits electronic communication service providers to provide the government with the mobile location-based data, and the government can use such personal information in the management of the spread of COVID-19 and for the purpose of conducting mass surveillance. If the personal information is anonymized or de-identified. One dimension to highlight from South Africa's experience of harnessing data for COVID-19 response is the participation, contribution by stakeholders, by the researchers from university as well as volunteers. They put out information provided by the government and did mining, validation, storage of data related to COVID-19 patients in the country, and shared the consolidated data in an open, publicly available repository. The next country case is US. The foundation, next page. The Foundations for Evidence-Based Policymaking Act of 2018 was signed into law in January 2019 to implement the recommendations of the Commission. The Evidence Act established the new expectations for open data, data inventories, and data management. The federal data strategy was issued by the White House OMB. It is the first government-wide data strategy issued encompassing 10-year vision. The purpose is to create a coordinated, integrated data strategy to better enable the data to deliver on mission, serve the public, and steward resources while respecting privacy and confidentiality. The federal data strategy framework is composed of 10 principles under the ethical governance principle and the conscious design principle and the learning culture principles, 40 practices and 20 action steps to implement the practices there are. And then next here is the full list of 40 principles on the left, which are on the building a culture that values data and promotes public use. Two is governing, managing, protecting data. three is promoting efficient and appropriate data use learning culture. On the right are 20 action plans with time frames. Next, and this is the dashboard to monitor the progress on each of the action plan. Next, and I would like to introduce two institutional arrangements. First is the Federal Data Policy Committee. Second is the Federal Chief Data Officer Council. Next, and here are some examples of how data was harnessed and presented for COVID-19 response in the CDC COVID data tracker. Among various data sets, for example, the tracker provides country COVID-19 status view for community level information. The second one shows the social impact of COVID-19 events. Lastly, it also provides data on the people at the increased risks. Next, Director Son will explain more about the Korea case, so I will pass this slide. For now, I will move on to slide 69. The roles of local governments were outstanding in fighting against the COVID-19 pandemic. Here are two cases of smart cities in Korea. The first is Sejong National pilot smart city strategies for building city of big data and the city of artificial intelligence. It highlights the city data governance on ensuring data anonymity, decentralized data management, securing data transparency, and providing incentives for data provision. Incheon Smart City also is a leading smart city with the integrated data system, enabling a number of public services. Next, another local government case to discuss is Indonesia Bandung District's data governance strategy. Actually, the city government is faced with data information that is inadequate, not fully trustworthy. But in order to innovate the data governance, the district designed a strategy model for government activity transparency and address the district's own internal need in decision making. Next, what is notable is that it tried to enhance data governance through a triangular approach by integrating both the government and the society in the progress. Next, moreover, they came up with a plan to overcome the 93% of unconnected information systems within the district and reduce data redundancy. Under the implementation plan, one is data governance, data architecture management, data development, and next, data master management, data quality management. There are 10 kinds of strategies. Next, this is a summary of the country cases presented in this section of the presentation for your easy reference. Next, what are the lessons learned and the policy recommendations? Understanding the data governance trends for the year ahead will give business leaders and data professionals a competitive edge. Since data is increasingly perceived as important as being able to write and do math, education on data and data literacy is critical. Government needs to ensure protection of data. The presence of a data ombudsman is needed to ensure effective data privacy. Strategic conversations on data governance should happen in the right places at the highest levels of private and public sectors. The role of Chief Data Officer, CDO, is emphasized. CDO can enable integration among systems by bringing in the right perspectives, empowering governments with new capabilities in managing risks and focusing on providing quality data for the country. Next, data governance at the local level is important for local development and building smart cities and public service delivery. Ensuring data transparency and communication with the stakeholders in the process of data management is essential. There need continuous updates and developments in data governance. Innovative and timely actions adjustments in relevant data policies are critical. That's all from my side. Thank you for all your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shim and Mr. Yao, for your very comprehensive and insightful presentation, which provided an overview of data governance and explained why it is important, especially in combating COVID-19 and the major policy issues and the challenges. I think the recent trends in data governance and the diverse country cases introduced also provide important lessons learned and policy implications for instituting effective data governance, which Mr. Shim also highlighted at the end of the presentation, including the importance of commitment, leadership, and the role of CDOs, integration of the systems, communication with the stakeholders for data transparency, and enhancing data literacy and capacities, among others. Thank you very much once again. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Seongju Son, Director of the Digital Government Cooperation Division of the Ministry of the Interior and Safety of the Republic of Korea, to share Korea's country experience. Mr. Son, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Seongju Son, and it's my honor and pleasure to be here with you. Today, I'd like to show you about public data policies and governance of Korean government. Okay, next slide. Okay, let me start with the whole picture of our data governance. Okay, this slide shows a legal framework of public data policies. We have 4 major acts regarding data. The first one is the Act on Promotion of the Provision and Use of Public Data, which is about open data. The second one is the Act on Promotion of Database Administration. This law is intended to facilitate data analysis and utilization in government. And the third one is the E-Government Act that promotes data sharing between ministries and agencies. The last one is the Personal Information Protection Act. Next slide, please. Well, these are the principles and goals of Korean government's data policies based on the laws in the previous slide. It's a legal obligation of Korean government to open public data and facilitate its utilization in order to develop digital economy and implement transparent and open government. And we are going to promote database administration, which is using data for policymaking and decisions for scientific and reasonable policy with more accountability. Information sharing is the key to break silos between agencies and ministries and implement pay-for-free, citizen-friendly public services. As personal information protection is the foundational compliance, which requires explanation from different point of view, and it takes a lot of time, I think. So I would like to focus on the other 3 in this presentation. Next slide, please. And this slide shows most of Korean government's activities regarding public data. As you can see, Korean government does various activities throughout the whole life cycle of public data. It means that Korean government takes data very seriously and investing a large amount of resource in data management. Korean government collects and refines data considering sharing and utilization from the beginning of the life cycle and puts a lot of effort to ensure quality and integrity of data by standardization and system integration. Pan-government inspection and evaluation is already in place, and we are continuously improving methodology and criteria. Capacity development of government officials are one of the most important fundamentals for successful data governance. And I will tell you about several key activities in detail later. Next slide. The diagram in this slide shows stakeholders and roles regarding public data. The most important point of this diagram is that Korea has a primary ministry, Ministry of the Interior and Safety, MOIS in short, to lead, facilitate, and coordinate data policy and governance. As MOIS is in charge of digital government and government innovation and local government, there has been a lot of synergy created by existing pan-government cooperation between MOIS and all other government ministries and agencies. We have 2 committees, consists of experts from both the private and the public sector. Public Data Strategy Committee is mainly in charge of open data to the public. The chairperson is the Prime Minister and the Minister of MOIS is the manager of the committee. Database Administration Promotion Committee is mainly in charge of data analysis and utilization within the government, and the chairperson is the Minister of the MOIS. MOIS has public information sharing center as a part of the organization, and Pan-Government Data Analysis Center is in the process of setting up as the relevant law was enacted recently. MOIS provides government data to the public and support its utilization through Public Data Utilization Support Center. which is currently established at National Information Society Agency, and Specialized Agency for Database Administration, which is in the process of designation, will help MOIS to cooperate with other ministries and agencies to promote database administration. MOIS itself has almost 60 officials in charge of data and hundreds of experts from Public Data Utilization Support Center, Specialized Agency for Database Administration, and third-party contractors of relevant projects supporting MOIS to carry out activities about public data. Of course, at the other ministries and agencies, there are more officials and experts who have expertise in the specific domain. They are the starting points of pan-government governance of data. Next slide, please. And this slide shows common government data platforms and services operated by MOIS. From the beginning, Korean government constructed integrated common data platform and services and shared them among all the government entities for effective pan-government governance and cost saving. Public information sharing system has been the hub and backbone of Korean government data ecosystem since 2002, and its role is still expanding as data becomes more important. Data.go.kr is Korean government's one-stop portal for open data. This service opened since 2011. Recently, MOIS is constructing integrated data management platform and National Master Data Repository and My Data Management Platform. Most of them are already open now and in the process of improving and expanding. Next slide, please. As I show you the whole picture of our governance, I would like to tell you about several examples in detail. Korean government have consistently pursued open data policy with the pan-government cooperation, and Data.go.kr have released almost 50,000 data sets and provides more than 7,000 open APIs to the public. MOIS updates open data strategy and implementation plan periodically and evaluate the status of data provision and management of other ministries and agencies annually. Next slide, please. Common standards are necessary for efficient utilization, management, and provision of public data. Without common standards, they will cost much more and takes more time to implement. We have technical standards and requirements to design and manage database, and common vocabulary is defined to improve data compatibility and efficiency of sharing. We also have 122 standard data sets for public release as of 2020. MOIS defines the schema of an open data set, and other government entities use the standard schema to collect data. For example, each local government may open data set of parking space in its district. The data set from different local government can be joined with little effort as they are in the same format. Next slide, please. Metadata is a map, a signpost, and a catalog to find and use appropriate data. To manage metadata of many government entities efficiently, MOIS developed and distributed a standard metadata management application and constructed the pan-government integrated metadata registry. As of 2020, 564 government entities are using the standard application and more than 3,000 databases are registered. Next slide, please. Moreover, Korean government takes special care of essential government data used by multiple government entities by designating them as national master data. For example, data set of resident, land, car, corporation, and license. They are designated as a national master data. MOIS ensures data integrity and accuracy of national master data and operates national master data repository system, which is shared by all government entities to save cost and reduce time of data association and sharing. Next slide, please. Most of data sharing and association, including national master data, are processed by public information sharing system. Public information sharing system provides inquiry service for public officials on 62 types of administrative information and data sharing service between government information systems. Currently, more than 5,000 types of data are shared and used through this platform. As demand on data sharing increases, the platform is going to be expanded and improved with new technologies. Next slide, please. Using data analysis for policy making and public service innovation is a new challenge for us. Korean government started data analysis on key policy areas from 2018, and as of 2020, 15 data analysis project has been done. For example, we try to identify main causes for industrial disasters and effects of air pollution in the urban areas. MOIS supports data analysis of other government entities by request. For example, a data analysis project for our local government to determine the optimal time and location for effective pest control was conducted by request. MOIS also provides Korean reusable reference model for data analytics. For example, a local government may use a flood risk analysis model for DESA preparation. Next slide, please. So today's last chapter is about data in COVID-19. Data policy and governance are presented in the previous slides, supported and reinforced Korean government's prowess and resiliency to cope with COVID-19. Most of all, the seamless data flow and silo for information sharing have played an important role in immediate, effective, and efficient response of Korean government. Korean government has been able to allocate proper resources to test, trace, and treat the disease through pan-government cooperation and digitized administration. As you can see in this slide, many types of data have been collected, associated, and used to cope with the outbreak. Next slide, please. Yeah, like my colleague said before, people need information more than usual when they are facing disaster like epidemic. Korean government shared all the information regarding the outbreak transparently with the public through central and local government websites, and datasets and APIs related to COVID-19 released as well for more collaboration between the private and public sector. Government also uses several tasking technology, which can broadcast emergency text messages to alert the public, including people with less digital capacity. Masco app is one of the most successful private-public sector collaboration. In the early stage of COVID-19 outbreak, students suffer from the shortage of facial masks. The Korean government provided datasets and open APIs to facilitate the development of applications to inform citizens of where to buy face masks. 110 mobile apps and 72 websites were developed within a month, and more than 170 million API calls in 3 days. And sell-through rate of face masks increased from 40% to 94%. This case shows how open data can be a very powerful tool for better public services. Lift fund distribution is another case of collaboration. Korean governments set up a new information system that processed 21 million households within a month. The system and data of central government linked to credit card company systems and local government systems to provide a simple and convenient online and offline services for applying, approval, and providing subsidies. The project could not be possible without the help of well-organized government data and silo-free pan-government data sharing, collaborate data governance, and integrated data platforms infrastructures. So in conclusion, COVID-19 proved that well-developed public data governance could be a wonderful tool to overcome national crisis. Well, this is all I've tipped today. Thank you for your attention, and please let me know if you have any question or comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stone, for your very comprehensive, insightful presentation, introducing various dimensions of Korea's data governance framework and policies, and sharing its experience in effective harnessing data for COVID-19 response. I think many participants would find Korea's experience very interesting and helpful. Thank you very much once again. I would like to thank once again all three speakers for their insightful presentations. And we'll now have a short Q&A session with the speakers. And I've seen through the Q&A box and the chat boxes that we received quite some questions for the speakers. First, I've seen that we have received some questions in regards to data privacy. Kabalisa Rin mentioned that talking about data protection, most of the places due to COVID-19 are requests to write our names, address, and phone number on a piece of paper. What happens if someone misuses that info? And there was another question also through chat box from Emil Karpelin. what should be prioritized, data privacy or data security, since we are experiencing the pandemic? What safe method that a government can implement both security and privacy and the information that you give out? Maybe this first question, may I invite Keping? Mr. Kevin Yao to answer. I know you've already shared some of your ideas to these questions, but could you share your insights further on how do you think the government can effectively address the risks and possible threats to data privacy of citizens that may drive, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nikhil. Actually, I already share some answers in the chat box already, but I want to share my answers here again. Yeah, actually, it's quite often actually during COVID-19, and also the misuse of personal data, or we call it like a data breach. It could cause a serious problem to the individuals as well as to the whole society. For the personal, for example, if such information is by unlawful use for online transactions, or maybe other people can use your personal information to apply for credit card, maybe. So that's cause kind of severe kind of damage for the individual. But a more severe is that if such kind of data breach, it's not an occasional case. It also can damage the public trust in the government, because it's unlawful access, unlawful dissemination of the data. It also holds the credibility of the government. Yeah. So that's why in our presentation by three of us, we always say that it's very important to have a legal framework to protect the personal data. And also, of course, the data governance requires a holistic approach in terms of the data protection. It requires from the perspective of laws and regulations, and also the institutional efforts, and also about the awareness of also among the civil servants about the seriousness of the protected personal data. Yeah. So. And also, this kind of data protection of the information should be also kind of starting from very beginning, from data collection, from data processing and data access, and also data storage. Yeah. About the second question, how to prioritize the data privacy and data security, what the measures the government should take, right? So I think it's, of course, first one, it's also starting from the laws and the regulations. The government should review the existing laws and see whether there's a necessity to upgrade the existing regulations. Yeah. Secondly, I think it also should some campaigning by the government to raise awareness among the government officials and also among the citizens, which are also other stakeholders, they made the users of such data, about the importance of ethical processing and ethical use of the personal data. The third, I think it's very important to have the necessary technology to control the data access, so that we can have the layered access to the control. Not all the people can access this data. So we need to have necessary technology to document, and also to ensure that any people who access the data, they can leave some marks when they access this data. And lastly, is also during my presentation, I also mentioned about the protocol governing the data partnerships between the government and also other private companies. So this kind of a protocol should be transparent to the government, to the citizens. Yeah. So the citizens know they used, how the data was collected, how the data is used. So it can enhance the trust of the citizens about the data. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I ask the same question to Mr. Son as well, to share his further thoughts and experiences to this question, how you think the government can effectively address the risk of possible threats to the data privacy of citizens? Please, Mr. Son.
Yeah, in Korea's case, we have strict regulation and legislation about the privacy and personal information protection. So, for example, there are also a question in QA section. So, if you have to share and use the personal information, we have to get a consent, or you have to legal ground to do that, unless we cannot do that. So sometimes we have to build it, we have to get the citizens' consent first to share it. So in Korea's case, we did not share any personal information with the public openly. They are just shared by the officials or people who has authorities to deal with the personal information data based on the legal ground. And also we didn't use the system which is dealing with the personal information, which is doesn't have any legal grounds. So legal grounds means that we got social consensus on the personal information use from people. That is how Korean government deal with the personal information during the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, may I invite Mr. Shim, further to what's in continuation, further to the current responses from Mr. Keping Yao and Mr. Son. How do you think a government can effectively address the issue of the deficit of public trust? Could you elaborate more on and how to build citizens' trust on public institutions, particularly from the perspective of the strengthening of data governance perspective? This it was also a question based on the question from the student from SNU. So could you share from your insights on this question, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Miguel. Indeed, the trust, to ensure the trust from citizens is a very critical issue. Though data is useful in everyday life, we fear some worries and concerns. For example, data shadow is happening every second, whether it is our intention or not. Whereas we take part in daily activities like checking our email, scrolling through social media, or even by using our credit card. There is some big brother worries indeed. So in order to ensure the citizens trust the government, needs to ensure protection of data by establishing, amending relevant laws and regulations, as Director Son said. The presence of a data ombudsman is needed to ensure effective data privacy. When you take a look at the data governance frameworks of many countries or regional cases, you will find it. Ensuring data transparency and communication with the stakeholders under the whole of society approach in the process of data strategy is essential. Strategic conversations on data governance should happen in the right places, in the highest levels, and they should address the questions of who has the sovereign domain over that data, who gets to decide what is done with those data, and the three is who is making money with that data are raised as geographical landscape change. Yeah, thank you for the good question. Yeah, and for the opportunity to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shin, for your insightful response. We've also received some more questions that are asking for further questions to Mr. Son on the Korea's experience. If I may share one of those from Ramiz Udin, shared through the Q&A box. Metadata for individual department ministry is a great work. Is there any challenge to do that? And in addition to that, if you could also share any other major challenges the Republic of Korea has been experiencing, and what would be also the lessons learned that could be shared with other countries, please.
Okay, thank you. So, frankly speaking, it is not easy to have all agencies cooperation, as it gives additional burden on them, as you know. So not just about metadata. So everything we did for pan-government cooperation, takes a lot of effort to make them cooperative. So most could get through the resistance by supporting them with budgets and incentives. In other words, we give financial support for metadata-related project, and some and some officials received official recommendations for doing their good jobs. And also there are some penalties on them. If they are not cooperative, we did our government propensity evaluation program, and they get less good. So bad evaluation, and it will affect the budget allocation and also the human resource allocation the next year. So most of ministries and agencies try to abide by data policies to make to get the better evaluation.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question from the Q&A box. May I address it to Kepping, Mr. Kepping now? How to enhance comprehensive and appropriate data disaggregation capacity among the civil servant? Could you share your ideas on this question, please?
Thank you, Mikyo. Actually, as we presented during the first part of the first presentation, I said that data disaggregation is the key to addressing the challenges of the COVID-19, but it's very challenging. So to enhance the capacity of data disaggregation among civil servants, I think the first step is we should have the detailed classification of vulnerable groups, which also may be very challenging due to the intersectionality of the vulnerability of the vulnerable groups. Yeah. Because for example, the women may be poor, may be disabled, and so how to classify them. Yeah. Second is also the government should improve the civil registration and vital statistics, and also ID management to ensure everyone is counted. Because the UN it's coordinating a global initiative for the 10-year population census. Yeah. So the government should enhance the capacity to engage in this population census. And also, of course, I mean, the state office, normally they conduct a household survey. So these two are very important too in this regard, yeah. The third one is that the civil servants should be conscious of protecting personal data of vulnerable groups to avoid stigma and possible discrimination against those people. Because if there's such kind of, like hate incidents happened, this kind of vulnerable groups, they may refuse to be included or documented. Yeah. And also the fourth, the government institutions responsible for the protection of vulnerable groups, they should collaborate with each other to ensure the data comprehensiveness. Yeah. And the fifth is that the civil servants should upgrade their skills and technology capacity in data collection. Yeah. And then lastly, the civil servants, especially the statisticians, should work together with the civil society organization or private sector to improve the data coverage and the data quality. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Also, may I ask the same question to Director Son, please? Do you have anything else further to add regarding enhancing capacities for the disaggregated data, please?
So yeah, it takes a lot of training program and also capacity building program for the government officials, as they are not used to it. They are just not used to using the data as the source of the policy making and policy decisions. So also they have to change their way of thinking, because they just follow the process which is previously done before usually. But in the age of data, they have to think creatively and also look out for data outside of their their previous region of the world. So this kind of change does not happen in a daytime or in a short period of time. We need a lot of time to make the changes in the government official, which is famous for bureaucracy. But in Korean government, we are very fortunate that we already have a culture of innovation in the government. So people are trying to innovate by themselves, and they are eager to learn the new technologies and new skill sets for example, for data. That's good. That's a very good situation for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Then may I ask one follow-up question in response to further to your answer? That you also elaborated on your presentation about this collaboration with other stakeholders, especially the private sector. And could you elaborate further on how the Korean government could has effectively collaborate with other stakeholders, not only the private sector, but also IT industry, citizens, etc., for effective, timely, and inclusive harnessing for COVID-19 response, as well as strengthening data governance system in general, and what will be the approaches and strategies that could be also shared, please.
So Korean government started from the open data about the data policy. So from the beginning, we have to concern and consider about the private sector and other stakeholders, because open data is just open data if they are not used by others like private sector companies or other ministries. So we have a whole sole division which is in charge of cooperation and as I said before, so in the agency that support us. So yeah, sorry, but the National Information Society Agency, they have a whole division for the supporting private sector or other ministries to use the use and utilization of data. So we have a lot of programs, also capacity building for private sector as well, and also supporting program for the entrepreneurship and other SMEs with the cooperation with other ministries in charge of the industry facilitation. So then makes us another level of pan-government cooperation for the supporting the private sector and other sectors to use the data. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question, I would like to invite Mr. Shim. One of the questions we received through the Q&A box asked, in this current COVID-19 situation, what are the steps taken by the United Nations in helping the technologically challenged countries to utilize an effective data gathering program? Yes, so could you kindly introduce and explain, please, an answer to this question, please? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mi-kyung. Yeah, not only the technically challenged countries, also the developed countries in the COVID context of the COVID crisis, all the countries hit hard, and they are all struggling to overcome this crisis. Response to this COVID-19 crisis is very challenging to all the countries. But the United Nations, we are trying to share knowledge and technology through peer-to-peer learning, South-South cooperation and South-North cooperation. Yeah, we do all through all the capacity development activities. We are trying hard to overcome this crisis through those kind of activities. And also we are conducting research activities on the digital transformation or data economy. As you know, the last year, the UN DPIDG, they conducted the e-government survey. They identified the apples and the weaknesses and the strengths of the many countries in combating the COVID-19 crisis. So many countries could check their strengths and weaknesses and learn from the other best practices. And also for the digital transformation, UN is now developing some developed already the toolkit, and we're preparing to develop the toolkit for this technology for digital transformation or data governance. Those kind of things, research activity, capacity development activity, and the publications and the survey, those kind of activities, and also advisory services for the special demand from the developing countries, we are conducting the advice services also. So many kinds of things we are doing, but we should take note that developing countries also can leapfrog under this current context. You have also an opportunity to leapfrog, though some technology might lag behind. There are many other opportunities to leapfrog because the technologies are evolving very quickly. The current technology can be outdated, so you can have the opportunity to leapfrog if you take advantage of this opportunity. As we presented in this session, all the countries can refer to the recent trends. Then you can have the opportunity to leapfrog. Yeah, thank you, Megan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shin, for your response. I think it's already time for us to wrap up today's discussion. I've seen we had a little more questions received during the Q&A box. I think most of the questions, all of the questions are indeed also answered by our distinguished speakers. So I think that also answers that are left in the Q&A box. Participants could find it helpful. Thank you very much once again for your contribution. In addition to that, for those participants who wish to share further questions, please, you're invited to share your questions on the online discussion board that has been created on UNPOG website for further discussion with the speakers, as well as peer-to-peer learning among the participants. So now this is time to close the session. I would like to once again express my greatest appreciation to all our distinguished speakers today, as well as all our participants for your participations as well as questions. And before we close, I would like to invite all participants to kindly share a few minutes to take part in the post-survey for better improvement of our program. Again, all presentation materials from today's session and the video recording will become available at UNPOG's website. Thank you very much once again, everyone, for your participation. And we look forward to meeting you again next week's session, which will take place next Friday on May the 7th. Thank you very much and wish you a great day. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.